4 years till I was made redundant. Then worked as a consultant for 8 years before I started working with Transport for Greater Manchester.
And that's where you are now?
That's where I am now. I'm the Rail Service Development Officer for TfGM.
So it's more than just a job for you then, though, isn't it?
It's something I'm quite passionate about. I'm passionate about railways and so forth, and the role that railways play in the economy, and particularly more so nowadays in terms of the environment and things like that. Because
well, people arriving will wait for it with anticipation.
Okay, all right. This is the route I'm going to cover in this afternoon. I came to live in Gorton when my father left the role as a constabulary and came to work in Manchester. And I grew up in Gorton, in this place called Dean Road, which is very much just alongside that Palafian Loop. So every night I could lie in bed and listen to the freight trains coming up from Trafford Park and so forth. So even now when I travel around here on the tram, or I walk up and down the Fallowfield Loop and take my two Labradors for a walk on there occasionally, I can sort of almost close my eyes and imagine the sound of steam locomotives banging up that embankment from Chorlton Junction through Fallowfield and Levenshulme up to Hyde Road, where they would often come to a stand and electric locos would then go on for the rest of the journey towards Sheffield and places like that. Let's go back to more glorious days. This is a shot of Manchester Central. First opened as in 1875 as a temporary station. And then completed in 1880. Modelled with the Midland Railway on St Pancras, so the same sort of arch roof as St Pancras, slightly smaller radius, but almost the same size. There was plans at one time for this area here. They were going to build a hotel in the front of the station, like they did at St Pancras, the recently restored hotel at St Pancras, which is now hotel and expensive flats, having been vacant since 1930s and used as kind of offices, not even threatened with closure in the 1960s until Sir John Betjeman came along and stopped it. Having lost the battle for saving Euston Arch, we were able to, or society was able to save St Pancras. Just imagine what St Pancras would have been like had British Railways had its way and had a second Euston just down the Euston Road. I mean, Euston's an absolute eyesore, so St Pancras is saved. But a very striking Midland Pullman. Is anybody old enough to actually remember seeing this thing? Yes, very lucky, because they were finally withdrawn in 1973 because they were sent down to the Western region, but they only operated on this line for 6 years. Very striking colour of Nanking blue. German diesel engines, one in each, or par car at each end. Sorry, go again. I keep getting these buttons wrong, don't there's the par car at each end. They also carried auxiliary engines on the two of the carriages for driving the air conditioning in the kitchen. It lay derelict for a while, and then it became a car park. And then eventually they started work on it and turned it into GMEX. It became GMEX for a few years as well. Here, there's Guy Bridge. That shows that curve round there is to Gorton, and there's the triangle Fairfield. This is the main line going out towards Godley and Hadfield. We see all the way to Sheffield at one time. That, of course, is still there, so that's not a lost railway. Down the Park Station, or Wilbraham Road Station, 1925, and you can see quite a lot of green fields and so forth around it. Some houses being built, some sites being marked for housing and so forth, because that's the effect that railways had and still do in terms of attracting houses. And if you go and look around there now, on the site of the station and walk, well, it's not a cycleway, but walk around there, you can see the houses are all contemporary with the sort of latter part after the First World War. Now, the interesting one, the speaker who was here last week said, give me an article that actually pulls some stuff out on it. Anybody interested? Anybody here a fan of the blues?
Yes.
Yeah. John Lee Hooker, etc., and so forth. All right. Very much, as was shown, the examples today. There again, there's Chorlton. Very much about resource-driven, closing railways rather than sort of actually expanding them. So it's all about network reductions. And yet we've seen this huge growth. Those figures are nearly 75% on the peak now, 120 off peak. So we need to provide a better network, and this is a thing called Northern Hub. started as a study about 8 years ago, Manchester Hub, because they realised that Manchester is the centre of much of the North's railways. So that morphed into something called Northern Hub, £530 million, but roughly 4 times that in terms of benefits. For every pound spent, we're going to get £4 benefits in the way of jobs, better journey time opportunities, connectivity and so on.